Hey, everybody, and welcome to Learning from Smart People. I am your host, Rob Oliver, and my guest today is April Elaine Powell. She is a former wellness chef turned collaborative entrepreneur. She is the founder of several of her own businesses, including her current endeavor, ID Collective, which is thoughtful and accessible interior design. And on a side note, I love the concept of accessibility, near and dear to my heart. She is the co-founder of a nonprofit called Design Collective 207. And she is just interested in working with female designers. She is headquartered in Portland, Maine. And I just want to say, April Elaine, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Rob. It's so great to be here. I love your format and I'm looking forward to it today.
Wonderful. So listen, part of the reason why I wanted to have you come on is because whenever I am looking at entrepreneurs and looking at what I would classify as underrepresented populations in entrepreneurship, which would be female entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs of color, entrepreneurs with disabilities, all of those, any way that I can support those populations, I'm like, yes. And so when I was reading your story about what you're doing, and then even with the nonprofit stuff, I'm like, this is great. I've got to have April Elaine on. So let me just start here. Give me kind of like your backstory. What kind of deal were you doing as a wellness chef? I've never heard of what a wellness chef is. And then how did you transition out of that?
Well, Rob, it's funny. Growing up, I never considered myself an underserved commodity until I became an entrepreneur. And actually, once I started being a chef, I experienced it for the first time. Being, I don't know, what would you call that? Circled out as a woman in the kitchen, in a professional kitchen, it was tough. You learn to sidestep conversation and just do whatever the guys were doing to keep your job, to get noticed. And that didn't sit well with me as I made it through the years. And I actually went back to school for nutrition and culinary medicine because I wanted to take being just a chef into something that meant something, that was helping people and nurturing them in another way. So I kind of gave myself that title long before. I believe it's being used now by quite a few people. I'm sure I wasn't the first, but it was important to me to take what I had learned and turn it into something better for people, better for me as a human being, sharing who I was. I grew up in Seattle. So my father owned a company called a Ventral Wellness Center, which centered on all of the body works you can imagine. He taught at the University of Washington kinesiology, massage therapy, and things along those lines. So I learned how to live organically and sustainably before it ever was the buzzwords it's become today.
Wow. So let me just key on something that you said, that sense of being the odd person out in the workplace. As a person with a disability, I kind of get that. And in this day and age where there is the push for diversity and the push for inclusion, I actually ended up feeling like that put a whole lot of pressure on me because I never wanted to be viewed as someone who was hired because I have a disability. Like, oh, that's the guy that we hired to fill the quota. So I felt like I needed to outperform everybody else so that they would look at me and be able to see past my disability and to see what my capabilities are. Did you ever have any feelings like that when you're in the in the professional kitchen?
Oh yeah, I was just nodding my head as you were speaking because I'm like, oh, I can so relate. I would work late hours. I would come in early. I would be the one that knew the plate settings, the everything. And I learned the front of the house So I knew anything and everything that was going on. So just so I could stay equal, let alone be promoted. Those are things I learned in culinary school actually quite quickly. I was one of 3 women in my graduating class in culinary school.
Yeah. It's,
And we were treated different.
it's crazy. And it's a thing where you actually have to be better just to be viewed as equal. And that's such a crazy, crazy concept. And I'm hoping that, we're able to move the world forward where we get past looking at people's external external circumstances, external definition, and to be able to look at people for actually what they are doing. And listen, October is National Disability Employment Awareness Month. And so that's really something that I've been trying to get out there with the message to say, hey, look at people for what they can do. And don't be put off by what is different or by what they can't do. Let's focus on the cans and make a world where everybody is contributing what they can. So you're doing this work as a kind of your self-defined wellness chef, where you're working to do something that is organic, that is wholesome, that is culinary related. And then you decide, okay, I'm moving from this into design. What happened? What was the push that kind of got you moving in that direction?
It's funny that you should ask that particular question. I get asked that one a lot. Um, it's it's interesting that a lot of people have this view that these are 2 very opposite things, and in reality, being a chef is very design related. It's about presentation. It's about making things balanced and equal. Yes, you talk about the food and its flavors, but it starts with the eyes. It starts with the visual. And so to me, it felt like a natural progression. But I learned in culinary school, I had taken a class on design, on how to design a kitchen. And I got an A+ in it. And I remember being so freaking amazed and just enthused about doing it. I was like, but I can't make a living doing that. I'm gonna have to I want to be a chef. So it kind of got put on the back burner back then. But then as I had gone through the different roles that I worked for corporations, I worked for Seattle's Best Coffee. I worked for a company called Sharp's Roaster and Ale House in Seattle. I was put in charge of helping people rearrange their workspaces or rearrange the dining room, or I was doing workflow and things that appealed to me along with the managerial side of things and doing the culinary. And I realized how much I really enjoyed them. And so one of the things I started wanting to really do was design more restaurants, coffee shops. I worked for Sodexo and created in my role for them at Lipscomb University in Nashville, I created a basic little area for the middle school and high school to come and enjoy the same things they got that the college people were doing, but in a smaller version. So they could go get a hot chocolate or have a station for fried food, nutritional food, just like they had gone into the college cafeteria and they got to feel like they were a part of a better things, like they had gotten upgraded.
That's
you
cool.
know, which who doesn't in middle school and high school want to act like a college student?
Yeah, I love it. And let me just go back and again touch on something that you said. You mentioned the fact that being a chef is really about presentation. And it brings back a story for me. I remember we went to a nice restaurant, and so my deal is this. Because of the limitations that I have with my hands, it's very difficult for me to cut up my own food. So my wife, she can do it, but I'm trying to be considerate of her because she has to help me with a lot of stuff. So whenever we go out to eat, always asking the wait staff, like, hey, this is what I would like. Now, can somebody in the kitchen just cut this into bite-sized pieces for me? And I always remind them, listen, I've got a big mouth. It doesn't have to be like little tiny cubes or anything, but just to make it a little bit easier. And we were at a very nice restaurant, and the waiter came back to me and he's like, okay, the chef is really about presentation. So what the chef is requesting is, can I bring your food out to you and show it to you before it gets cut into bite-sized pieces? And then we'll take it back in the kitchen and cut it up then. And to me, it was kind of funny, because it's like, yeah, here's the challenge for the chef. Why don't you see if you can cut it into bite-sized pieces and then do something to make that presentation? But, you know, the point of the whole thing is that food is about much more than just taste. Food is about, it's about your eyes. It's about the aroma. There's so many different elements to it. And that is just a natural flow into creating a restaurant where food is the feature, but you've got to be able to see it. You've got to be able to smell it. You've got to be able to hear all of those elements. I love it. So when you then move into doing some design work, and you're designing mostly restaurant things, but are you doing this full-time? Do you transition immediately into doing it full-time, or is this like a side hustle, or how does it work for you, and then to get where you are today?
At this point, I was actually doing still a lot of the nutritional based things on the side. And my jobs with businesses were a mix of both, of the managerial, the designing, and so I was really enjoying. I worked for when I moved from the Tennessee area to New England. And in New England, I started working for Panera Bread and helping them, because they were building new Panera Breads in New England at that time. It was a new thing here. And one of the things I recognized is I want to make this official. I want to do more. And so I waited for my youngest son. I have three young men in my life that are sons. But one of them, the youngest one, was going to be finishing high school. And as soon as he did, that was the goal, as I was going to go back to school and get my degree and work on interior design full time. And that's what I ended up doing. I did a lot of research and I applied to schools, and, you know, at 40 plus, I was a little concerned, like, who's gonna, hire me or allow me into school at this point. And I was thrilled to get accepted at Parsons School of Design in New York City. I was like, wow, I
Cool.
did it.
Yeah.
That was like, that alone to me was an accomplishment. That I had a dream. I took the next step, and then the next step was even scarier.
Sure. It's interesting. I would imagine that schools have to appreciate what is typically viewed as a non-traditional student. And the reason is, somebody like you and somebody like me, if we're going back to school, I don't care about grades. I don't care about what I'm going, because I want to learn. And what I want to learn about something that I can use to make an impact in the world, and I can actually use in my life. It's not about filling out my gen ed credits. It's about getting me, practical tools that I can use to make the world a better place.
I agree. And that was one of the things this program was special, because it actually, they focused on the second career people. In fact, if you were a freshman, you couldn't even apply for this program. They wanted people that were in their second career or were older students that knew what they wanted to be doing, that had a focus.
Cool.
And I appreciated that my classmates, there were several my age.
Right. Good. So now you become an entrepreneur. Okay. You're doing your own business, and now the tables have flipped, or whatever the proper expression is. And now, instead of you working for someone else and having to prove your worth. You are now your own boss. How do you find being a female impacts that? Is that positive and negative, or is there's a way that you make it your own? It's not good or bad. It's how you deal with it.
It really is about making being a female entrepreneur an asset. To me, that has been the biggest focus for me. It took me a while to get there, to figure that out, because I work in people don't realize this, but interior design is actually a male dominated field, as far as who's getting the recognition, who's making the decisions are mostly men. And women have only recently really started to get the applause, to get the awards, to get the acknowledgement. And I think that one of the things that I recognized early on in working for myself, that it was much easier to feel confident in what I was doing if I knew that what I was saying were my own words. It wasn't something that somebody else gave me to say. It was something that I had decided. And I was, one of the pluses of having grown up in that environment in a kitchen was that I was used to talking to men. I was used to being in that conversation and not feeling intimidated. And I feel like that has helped me a great deal, talking to construction workers, builders, developers, tradespeople. They like you to talk frank with them, to be straight. I'm not a foo-foo kind of girl, never was. I've always been kind of a woman that gets along with just about everybody.
Sure.
So it was easy for me to step into this role. And actually, one of the things I value is that ability to get along with everyone and not take. I talk about being a woman and being an entrepreneur as a female, but it's not. I don't ram people over the head with it, because I don't think that that's helpful either. But I do embrace it, and I think that that's making it an asset. It's saying, I'm a woman, but I know how to communicate with a man.
Right. Yeah.
So I think that that's a big plus.
Yeah, I'm hearing what you're saying, and there's an element in which being a woman has nothing to do with the quality of product that you provide.
No.
But that element stands on its own. But there is something about owning your selfness and like, this is who I am, and I am proud of who I am, and it doesn't. In some ways, it brings certain strengths to what I'm doing, but the quality of my work stands on its own, and my comfortableness. Wow, I think I'm inventing words today for some reason. But
I like it when people invent words.
Comfortability, or whatever it is. I am solidly comfortable with who I am, and and in that way, when no matter what the circumstances are, and you and I think have both experienced this, that sometimes things aren't necessarily, it's not necessarily a level playing field. And life can be hard and life can be difficult, and sometimes you get difficult things that happen, but that's life and you deal with it, and it's not necessarily fair, but you move forward.
Agreed. And one of the best things that I remember growing up was that no one ever said life was going to be easy or fair. And it's something I taught my kids. My 3 sons are resilient and respectful and thought well of, because I didn't teach them to be, I should probably rephrase that. I taught them to be outspoken, to speak their mind, to tell people with respect. I think if you use respect and you use common sense and you use kindness, pure and simple kindness, when you're communicating with someone, it isn't going to matter to them whether you're what color your skin is, what gender you are, if you can walk or not walk, or if you have a disability of any kind, they're gonna see the human being that's there.
Yeah, that's it. I I want to shift gears for just a quick second, uh, because you talked about um, your ID work, your interior design, and but you're also working on a nonprofit. So tell me a little bit about this nonprofit, because to me, I'm intrigued. I also started a nonprofit for anti-bullying stuff, and um, and to me, it's a way of being part of the community, giving back to the community, building community. So tell me a little bit about your nonprofit and where you're going, and how it impacts the community where you are.
Thanks for asking about that. This one's near and dear to my heart and my soul. It's down to my soul. I was as probably in that same period of time when I was thinking about creating my for-profit business and just going out into design. I was also thinking about, how do I bring my friends, my colleagues, the people I care about together that are so creative? How can we help them grow and be a better at what they do, and be seen, be heard? Um, and then down the road, this has kind of blossomed. I would share it with people, other women, women I went to school with in New York, women I meet on the street here in Maine. And every time I'd share it, I'd get yeah, what a great idea. So basically it is Design Collective 207. And we use 207 because we're here in Maine and that's our area code. And it's most people know that because we only have one in the entire state. It's just a way of acknowledging that we're about inclusivity. We're about equality. We're about undoing some of the damage that's been done in a patriarchal society that's, let's face it, usually you think about a membership and you think about the men who used to have men's clubs, which still are in existence, and women weren't invited. And even when women started being invited, it was very, very selective. So to us, we wanted to kind of shake off all of those kinds of things. And we don't, it's not a membership with a design collective. It's the D fold, which D stands for design. The fold is about bringing people into the fold where we feel safe and supported. And really our tagline is be seen, be heard, be celebrated, because we want women. And this is all about female, and it's a female focused and female identifying inclusive community that's going to help them with their portfolios, a mentorship program, creating resources and events that are going to help support them in their efforts to be seen, be heard, and be celebrated for their accomplishments.
That's awesome. It's interesting. I look at different civil rights movements. Okay, so the women's civil rights movement, the African American civil rights movement, and the disability civil rights movement. And the women's movement obviously preceded the African American by many years. And things are not perfect for women these days. They're much better than they were. And with African Americans, they are behind the women's movement.
They are.
But there's progress there. And I would say that sadly, the disability movement is behind the African American movement by, probably 30 years. And so it's such a different thing. So I'm thinking here, if there's a woman out there, if there's someone with a disability out there and they're thinking about, doing something different, they've got a dream, they want to be an entrepreneur, they want to start their own business, they want to be part of a community of designers, or what's your message to the folks that are out there that have a dream?
Don't wait. Start your brilliant dream. Even if it's just talking to your neighbor and and having a conversation, but get the word out there. Start doing it. Don't wait. So many entrepreneurs that I run into, because I have a commercial side to my for-profit business, and I help small entrepreneurs. I don't focus on the big guys. There's enough interior designers out there helping them.
Sure.
I help the little ones. I help the little ones who might not have the resources to have somebody give them the information they need to lay the foundation, to have things brought to them, the ideas. Form a cohort, join a cohort. They're out there. There's some in every state in the union. There's some in every country. They're
Sure.
everywhere.
Yeah. And for anyone that's listening, and if you want to go back, one of my previous episodes was with Dr. Al Condalusi, who talks about building social capital. And that's just the idea of investing and finding places where there's commonality. It's great. April Elaine, you have been fantastic. And I could feel like I could talk to you all day. But if people are looking to get a hold of you, where can they find you?
We are at, you can reach me on Facebook. It's under my name, April Elaine Powell. You can reach me on Instagram. Love to have a follow. I will follow you if you follow me. And it's SB as in boy, ID Collective. That's Soul Brand Interior Design Collective, but it's,
Beautiful.
come find me.
Yeah.
We're on Twitter, and our website is being switched as we speak. So we're excited to enter into the world of website dome again.
Nice. Yeah. And so I will put links to all of that information down in the show notes so that people can get in touch with you that way. And you've been generous enough to offer a free consultation. Tell me about it.
I have. So anyone who wants to talk about what I've talked about today, or they just want to talk about interior design, they have a dilemma they want to bounce about, feel free to reach out to on our website. Actually, you could reach us on our Facebook or Instagram. There's a booking link, and you just book a call with me, and you get 30 minutes of my time, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Fantastic. Listen, thank you so much. Now we get to my favorite part of the show, which is 3 questions to establish your humanity. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Give it to me.
So what is one thing that can always bring your family together?
Food.
All right. And what's the go-to meal? I'm sure that as a chef, you've got a little bit of pressure on you for this, but what's the one meal that the boys are always like, hey mom, can you make us?
Pizza.
Really? Is homemade? You're making homemade pizza, or are you ordering?
Yeah, we make it from the crust up. And we used to have, actually the boys and I used to have competition. So everybody'd have a week that they got to do the pizza. So my boys are all actually probably better at pizza now than me, because they've been making it since they were small.
That is so funny. What is the thing that you are most proud of in the last year?
Ooh, I'd have to say taking the step myself to create the nonprofit. I have a co-founder, Shelley Stevens, who owns a floral shop here in Portland, Maine. And she believed in me, and I believed and believed in my dream enough that she joined me in and I think that meeting that day, and the fact that we're growing a board for Design Collective 207 and taking action.
That's very cool. Congratulations on that. Last question. You have lived around the country. So Seattle, Tennessee, Maine. What is the one regional dish that you're like, you know what, whenever I'm kind of having one of those moments, I wish I had this, or the thing, maybe it's a New England dish that you say, this is the one thing that just makes me happy.
Oh, that one's hard for me, because I'd have to say if there was one ingredient, it would be crab, because I can get that in Washington State or in Maine. I can't get it fresh crab really in Tennessee.
Right.
But it's the one thing I can get crab in just about every state. It's not always fresh, but
Right.
and it leads me back to a good memory as a kid. My grandmother used to take, when she'd come to visit, she'd take us to a restaurant in Seattle that made shrimp louis, or excuse me, crab louis, which was basically an English muffin with a ton of crab meat and a ton of cheese on top.
Nice.
How could you not like that?
It's got all the good stuff. Fantastic. Thank you very much for sharing that. I appreciate you being on the show today, and I hope folks take advantage of the offer that you have so generously put out there. To all my listeners, I say thanks for tuning in today, and I've got a favor to ask. If whatever platform any of my listeners are on, April, Elaine, I'll ask you this too. Hey, wherever you listen to this, leave me a review or leave me a rating. Just, of course, I would love to have 5-star ratings from everybody, but just honestly let me know what you think, and I will forever be grateful for that. I will remind everyone, as always, that when you stop learning, you stop living. Have a great day, everybody.